This is lesson 10.3, which is adding mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Your objective here is to know and remember how to make denominators equal when adding mixed numbers. The first thing we're going to do is just go ahead and try to add a more simple number that uses mixed numbers. I wrote out the steps to the side for you to look at while I'm doing this problem. The question is, what is 4 and 1/6 plus 5 and 2/6? Step number 1, you have to make sure first to add the fractions. When I'm talking about adding the fractions, I mean adding the 1/6 and the 2/6 together. You should know from our past lesson that when you add fractions, you first had to add the numerator, which is 1 plus 2 equals 3, and then your denominator stays the same. So right now you have 1/6 plus 2/6 equals 3/6. Step number 2, add the mixed number. This time I'm going to be adding the mixed number 4 and 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. Therefore, the answer to this problem is 9 and 3/6. To make it one step further to being correct, you would want to go ahead and simplify the fraction. So your answer would become 1 and 1/2. Here is another problem which is slightly different but uses the same steps. Step number 1, add the fraction. I'm going to take a look at this 3/5 and 2/5 and add those together. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then I'm going to keep my 5 as the denominator. Therefore, 3/5 plus 2/5 equals 5/5. Step number 2 says to add the mixed number or the whole number. This time we're going to be looking at the 5 and the 2. 5 plus 2 equals 7. So my answer here is 7 and 5/5. Now, hopefully you see that 5/5 is an improper fraction. So we have a new step this time, which is step number 3. I wrote out this step as saying first you need to change your improper fractions to a mixed number. So you should kind of remember from past lessons that 5/5 is the same thing as another whole number. So I'm going to be canceling out my fraction of 5/5 and adding that whole number of 1 to the column of whole numbers. So after I do that, I next just have to go ahead and add what is 7 plus 1. 7 plus 1 is 8. So the answer to my entire problem is just going to be the whole number of 8. We're going to try another problem that's pretty similar to the one on the previous page, using the same steps. Step number 1 says to add the fraction, so I'm going to go ahead and add 5/8 plus 4/8, and my answer is going to be 9/8. This is an improper fraction, but I'm still going to do step number 2 before I go ahead and change that to a mixed number. Step number 2 says to add the mixed number or the whole number that's off to the side. So once again, I'm looking at the 6 and the 4. 6 plus 4 is 10. So my answer is 10 and 9/8. Because we have an improper fraction of 9/8 to the side, I'm going to go ahead and do step number 3, which is change that improper fraction to a mixed number. Once again, what I'm doing is I'm going to be taking or minusing an 8/8 from this whole number, or in other words, just changing that 9/8 to 1 and 1/8. So doing that, I'm going to go ahead and take this 9/8, subtract an 8 from the top, and so left over I'm going to be adding the whole number of 1 and having a 1/8 left over to the side. So right now this one is a little bit different because I do have a fraction left over. The fraction that I have left over is this 1/8. So I'm going to be just bringing down in my answer that 1/8 And then I'm going to be adding my whole numbers 10 and 1. 10 plus 1 is 11. So your answer to this problem is going to be 11 and 1/8. Let's try another problem similar. Step number 1, we're going to add the fractions. Notice this time I just went a little bit further on my problem. Right now I have some denominators that are not the same. So my first step to solving this problem is to make my 4/5 have a denominator of 10 so that I have equal denominators when I'm adding. I had to multiply 5 times 2 to get to 10, so my numerator on top is going to be the answer to 4 times 2, which is 8. So my new problem reads 5 and 4/10 plus 3 and 8/10. Now I can go ahead and just add my fractions to the side. So in this problem, I'm going to be taking 4/10 plus 8/10. And my answer to that problem is 12/10. Next, I'm going to add the mixed or the whole number off to the side, which is 5 plus 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. So now my answer reads 8 and 12/10. The next thing I'm going to do is change my improper fraction to a mixed number. So I know 10 goes into 12 one time, having 2 out of 10 left over. So I can go ahead and cross out that fraction. Now all I have to do left over is just add that number to my answer of 8 right here. So I can bring down 2/10, and then I go ahead and add 8 plus 1 to equal 9. Your answer to this problem is going to be 9 and 2/10, or 9 and 1/5. Let's try another problem that's going to be pretty similar. I took away the steps because I want to see if maybe you can figure this one out on your own. This is not a practice problem, but you can go ahead and stop now and give it a good shot on your own. Okay, the first step to solving this problem, hopefully you remember that you have to have the same denominators to add fractions together. So I need to make sure that my denominator is going to be 8. I use the number 8 because 4 is a number that can easily go into 8, and I also have 8 as my denominator up here above. So to get that to 8, I had to multiply 4 by 2, and I'm going to multiply my numerator by 2 as well. 3 times 2 is 6, so my new problem reads 4 and 3/8 plus 1 and 6/8. My next step is just going to be adding my fractions to the side. I'm going to be adding the fractions 3/8 plus 6/8. And if you do that correctly, your answer should be 9/8. Adding my whole numbers 4 and 1, your answer is going to be 5. Now your answer for this problem is 5 and 9/8, but I'm going to take this 9/8 and switch it to a mixed number. 8 goes into 9 one time with 1/8 left over. So now I can just bring down that 1/8 and then add 5 plus 1 to equal 6. So your answer from this problem is going to be 6 and 1/8. Now I know this lesson has moved kind of quick, but we are going to be moving into our practice problems. Practice problem number 1. This one is a little tricky because you will have to find a number that both 3 and 4 go into to make your denominators equal. Go ahead and pause and give this problem a shot. Okay, so how do we go about solving this? I'm thinking of a low number that both 3 and 4 can go into. I'm going to choose the number 12 because it is the least common multiple that both 3 and 4 can go into. So it will also be the easiest to make as an equivalent denominator. To get from 3 to 12, I had to multiply it by 4. So I'm going to do the same thing to the top. 2 times 4 is 8. To get 4 to equal 12, I have to multiply it by 3. I'm going to do the same thing to the top and get a new numerator of 3. Okay, I'm done making those equal. Now I have to go ahead and just add 8 twelfths plus 3 twelfths. If you do that correctly, 8 plus 3 is 11, and then the denominator of 12 stays the same. Next, I'm going to add 3 plus 2, and my answer is going to be 5. I'm going to check to see if I need to go ahead and change 11 twelfths, but as you can see, this is not an improper fraction. So your answer to this problem is just going to be 5 and 11 twelfths. Let's try practice problem. Go ahead and pause and see if you can figure this one out. In this problem, all I need to do is change my fraction on top so that it has a denominator of 8. 4 times 2 equals 8, so I'm going to multiply my numerator by 2 as well. 3 times 2 equals 6. So my new problem reads 1 6/8 plus 4 5/8. I'm going to go ahead and add 6/8 plus 5/8. 6 plus 5 equals 11, and 8 is your denominator. I'm going to go ahead and add my mixed number of 1 and 4. And your answer here is just going to be 1 plus 4 equals 5. Now, hopefully you're noticing that 11/8 is an improper fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to a mixed number. 8 goes into 11 one time with 3 8s left over. I'm going to bring that 3 8s down, and 5 plus 1 is 6. So your answer for this problem is going to be 6 and 3 8s. Did you get that correct? Go ahead and circle the smiley face of how well you feel about today's lesson, and make sure you write a question that I can answer tomorrow morning.